During the First World War, the Cunard Steamship Company had played an important role during the war and made available its shore establishments for the war effort. However, this also came at a cost. At the war's end, the Cunard Company had lost 20 ships, totaling 205,460 gross tons, or 56% of its total tonnage. To replace war losses, which included most of the intermediate liner fleet, 10 cargo ships were bought for the North Atlantic trade. Additionally, the requirement for cargo capacity was so great that the 12,768 gross registered ton intermediate ship, Albania, was completed as a cargo passenger ship. As a second vessel in the Cunard fleet to bear that name, Albania, which was the fourth and final ship of the pre-war A-class, was the first ship to be completed for the Cunard Company after the First World War. Albania was ordered in June of 1916 as another passenger liner, but work was suspended for the duration of the war. In 1919, once work in Albania recommenced, she was instead redesigned as a cargo passenger ship. Yard number 479 was finally launched on the 17th of April 1920 by Scotch Shipbuilding and Engineering Company Limited of Greenock, Scotland, as the Albania. The twin-screw Albania had an overall length of 532.1 feet, a beam of 64 feet, and a depth of 43.9 feet. Her gross tonnage was 12,768 tons, and she had a net tonnage of 7,822 tons. Albania was powered by two sets of geared steam turbines, constructed by Scotch Shipbuilding and Engineering, which could provide 6,800 shaft horsepower to move the ship at 13 knots. Since Albania was completed as a cargo passenger ship, she carried 4 masts and cargo handling gear. Designed to maximize cargo capacity, the passenger accommodation was rather limited and was confined to the upper 2 decks of the vessel. However, it was still spacious as it was equipped with a total of 4 public rooms and the standard basic facilities that you would expect to find on any Cunard ship during this time period. Albania could also accommodate up to 480 passengers in a single cabin class. Albania was registered at Liverpool under the ownership of the Cunard Steamship Company Limited of Liverpool on the 21st of December 1920, and on the 19th of January 1921 departed on her maiden voyage from Liverpool to Queenstown and New York under the command of Captain Brown. Albania would remain on this route until 1922, when the ship was transferred to the Canadian service and made her first voyage on the Liverpool to Quebec to Montreal route on the 20th of April 1922. However, ultimately, neither route would prove to be viable for the dual-purpose vessel, being too small to operate effectively as a passenger liner and too big for a freighter. Considered a disappointment, in 1925, after the entry into service of the last 3 new A-class liners, the Cunard Company decided to decommission Albania. On the 27th of August 1925, Albania left for what would become her final voyage on the London to Southampton to Cherbourg to New York route, and following this voyage was laid up. It was not until 5 years later, in March of 1930, that Albania was finally sold to the Italian company Navigazione Libera Triestina of Trieste, Italy. Albania was refitted at the Arsenal Triestino shipyard and renamed the California. Reconstruction of the passenger accommodation during this refit resulted in reducing the passenger accommodation from 480 cabin to just 131st and 32nd class passengers. After the refit, California's first voyage for the service would commence on the 11th of December 1930, when California left on her first voyage from Genoa to Seattle. For the next 4 years, California operated on the Italy to West Coast USA service before being laid up at Genoa on the 10th of June 1934. Before the start of the Ethiopian War, California became one of the 6 passenger ships chartered between June and October of 1935 by the Regina Marina, or the Italian Royal Navy, to join 2 other employed vessels for the transport of the wounded and the sick among the troops sent to Eritrea and Somalia in preparation for the Italian invasion of Ethiopia on the 3rd of October, 1935. California was quickly converted into a patient transport ship. These sick transport ships distinguished themselves from hospital vessels by their coloring, with white hulls but without the red crosses and green stripes, which were typically prescribed for such units. These vessels were equipped with state-of-the-art equipment for the time period, including air conditioning systems, and equipped with 785 beds. California had the largest capacity among the other units used. Between 1935 and 1937, the sick transport ships carried out a total of 104 missions, transporting 42,273 wounded and sick troops. At the end of 1937, California remained at the disposal of the government and was laid up, as she was not returned to her ship owners, as that same year, following the Italian government's reorganization of their shipping companies, Navigazione Libera Triestina was dissolved, and as a result, California was allocated to Lloyd Triestino of Trieste. On the 13th of June 1940, following Italy's entry into the Second World War, California was requisitioned once again by the Regina Marina and converted at Naples into a hospital ship. This time around, the vessel was repainted according to the established Genova Convention for hospital ships, sporting a white hull, green band, and large red crosses. The following month, on the 20th of July 1940, California sailed on the first of several return voyages from Naples to Libya, arriving in the city of Benghazi to pick up sick and wounded troops. California returned to Naples by the end of the month and was soon once again sent to Benghazi to pick up more troops. However, once the vessel had been moored in Benghazi, on the night of the 16th and 17th of September 1940, a British air attack carried out by 9 Fairley Swordfish of the 815th Squadron of the Fleet Air Arm bombed and sunk several vessels, including 2 destroyers belonging to the Regina Marina. Several other ships were also damaged, but California made it through the ordeal unscathed, and on the morning of the 17th would be actively involved in the treatment of the numerous wounded among the crews of the affected units. A couple of days later, however, on the 19th of September, California would be slightly damaged by shrapnel during another British air attack on Benghazi. The vessel also carried out transport missions for the wounded and sick from the country of Albania, her former namesake, such as the one on the 14th to 18th December 1940, from Bari to Vlora and back. On the night of the 10th of August 1941, California was lying at anchor in the shelter of Syracuse Harbor when at 11 p.m. the ship came under attack by 9 Fairley Swordfish torpedo aircraft, this time from the 830 Naval Air Squadron of the British Fleet Air Arm, resulting in California being struck by an aerial torpedo, which resulted in 1 casualty among the crew. After the attack concluded at 12:25 a.m. on the morning of the 11th of August, California was beached in order to prevent the sinking of the vessel, with the stern coming to rest on a shallow seabed in 33 feet of water, semi-submerged, with the upper decks and the central and forward areas remaining above water. Salvage operations would soon commence on the 17th of August 1941. Due to the shallow water, it was possible to recover and save most of the furnishings and medical equipment, which were later installed on the hospital ship Città di Trapani in November of 1941. Salvage operations would continue into September and October of 1941, but were made increasingly more difficult by the effects of the rough sea, which damaged and strained the hull, and were made worse by a serious fire that broke out on board. A heavy storm on the 13th of October 1941 would ultimately cause the complete sinking of California, to which salvage attempts were abandoned shortly thereafter. The remainder of the wreck was refloated and broken up in the post-war period, being broken up by January of 1949. During the Second World War, California had carried out a total of 32 missions, transporting a total of around 24,000 sick and wounded soldiers. 3 months after the sinking, 3 British airmen from the 830 Squadron were captured in Sicily after crashing and ditching their plane in bad weather. When questioned by the Major of the Military Information Service of the Royal Army, Alberto Becci Lucerna, as to why they had attacked a clearly recognizable hospital ship, they claimed that the British reconnaissance had provided the air crews with an edited identification photo of the California from which the red crosses had been removed. This version has never been confirmed or denied by official sources.